This is Jeff Millard reporting from Washington, D.C. for TruthOut.org. With the recent firings of 8 U.S. attorneys by the Bush administration, they have been embroiled in a debate over the respect for rule of law or the lack thereof. They were today challenged by Senator Edward Kennedy.
At the heart of many of the serious challenges we face is the Bush administration's lack of respect for the rule of law. The administration's view our system of justice as merely another arena for furthering its right-wing ideology. It sees the Senate constitutional role in confirming those who enforce our laws as a roadblock to be circumvented whenever possible. The ongoing scandal over the firing of U.S. attorneys is a stunning example. Using a stealth provision slipped into the Patriot Act reauthorization, the administration has replaced U.S. attorneys without Senate review. And each day the evidence grows that the White House fired U.S. attorneys because they balked at using the enormous power of federal law enforcement to serve the partisan ends of the Republican Party. Carol Lam in San Diego had been too vigorous in pursuing corrupt Republican Congressman Randy Duke Cunningham. David Iglesias in New Mexico had refused to indict Democrats before last November's election. John McKay in the state of Washington had refused to pursue voter fraud charges as a means of challenging a Democrat's close victory in the 2004 election for governor.
Immediately following Senator Kennedy's remarks, a documentary titled Quiet Revolution was screened by the Alliance for Justice.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
After the Watergate scandal, Americans learned that the executive branch had spied on peace groups, on political opponents, even on Martin Luther King. And they learned that the president had considered himself above the law.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
After Nixon's downfall, Congress passed laws to restore checks and balances. To ultra-conservatives like Dick Cheney, this was all wrong. They wanted the president to have even more power. They thought they could do that in the Reagan years.
I do.
The Reagan-Meese agenda was to dramatically limit the powers of Congress and the courts and expand the power of the presidency. That's the simplest way to put it.
They made some headway then. But 13 years later came September 11th. That gave them another chance.
This administration has come to power in the thrall of a legal theory that aims to convince us that this excessive concentration of presidential power is exactly what our Constitution intended.
This expansive view even alarms some of the president's supporters.
I think the administration has looked at legitimate power of the executive during a time of war and taken it to extremes, to the point that we would lose constitutional balance. And it concerns me that it could basically neuter the Congress and weaken the courts. That's where we're at right now.
I don't believe that's where we're at right now.
That's where you're at with me.
The film's producer and president of the Alliance for Justice, Nan Aran, explained why it's important that people pay attention to the Bush administration's ideologically driven agenda.
With this administration, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of nominees who have been selected based on one criterion alone, and that is, will they turn back the clock on civil rights, women's rights? Will they help to end protections for the elderly and the poor? And are they hostile to environmental, consumer, workplace protections? And unfortunately, this administration has selected federal judges based on a litmus test of hostility to our rights and protections. And our goal is to educate people about just how important judges are, why they ought to care, and most importantly, why they ought to speak up each and every time there's a controversial nominee to the federal bench any place in this country.
As the debate continues to rage over President Bush's respect for the rule of law, Truth Out will continue to cover this subject. From Washington, D.C., this has been Jeff Millard for TruthOut.org.